and welcome back to another video. So, today we are talking about Rare's 40th anniversary. Founded in 1985, which is wonderful for them, I'm sure. Rare's gone through about what I'm going to call 7 eras. So there's been 7 periods of Rare over the last 40 years that I think I'm going to look really into. Now, I will be the first to admit this. I don't have the most extensive Rare collection in the world. I don't have every game they've ever made, blah, 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 because getting that would be very difficult. Bearing in mind they were making games on the ZX Spectrum, like Jetpack, makes a lot of this quite hard to get nowadays. Though, Rare have announced a Rare collection for the Evercade, which is pretty cool. I don't collect Evercade, which is a slight problem, but maybe for Rare. And Legacy of Kain. And maybe Duke Nukem. That sort of thing. Plus it's on sale, so I'll think about it. But I figured what I'd do today is sort of go through those 7 eras of Rare, my experiences with those 7 eras of Rare, and then kind of go from there. I thought that would be the most entertaining. So, we'll start from the beginning. We'll start from the long, long ago. Rare's earliest days. So, as I said, ZX Spectrum, Commodore, maybe Atari, who knows. A lot of these classic PC games were being produced by Rare during this time, and they were just sort of there. I think they were known as Ultimate Play the Game back then. Ultimate Play the Game. Now they're not called that because that's a terrible name. Terrible name for a for a company. I think back then they were called Ultimate Play the Game. So, whole host of different titles, whole host of different platformers, all that sort of good stuff that Rare really, in the height of their power, the height of their creativity, was really known for. I'd argue that sort of early period couldn't be as wildly experimental, maybe as they were with the N64 era, but we'll get to that. So yeah, not a bad era of Rare, by all accounts. Not one I've touched with a 10-foot barge pole. No, not one I've touched with a 10-foot barge pole. Which is sad. As I said, Evercade now have this collection coming out with 8 of their games on it. So maybe I will just drop the money and buy it anyway, and then think about getting an Evercade later. Because it's something I'm actually interested in. Rare's sort of earliest period. That then follows on to their next era. So their next era was basically what made them the sort of mega well-known powerhouse. It's what shaped Ultimate Play the Game into being Rare. And that was the Donkey Kong Country trilogy. Now, if you don't know what these are, where have you been? I don't own them, which is terrible. I need to get them, but money. Those are 3 SNES games. So they're all for the Super Nintendo, following Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Baby Kong, I think his name is, and Candy Kong, and all these different characters through 3 separate games. And a lot of, basically that's what sort of cemented Donkey Kong's look right up until this year with Donkey Kong Bonanza, which, you know what, if Rare was still making video games and not live service schlock, that would be a game they'd have made. They would have made Donkey Kong Bonanza because it's just the right level of fucking insane. And they're, well, yeah, this is their second era. This is the reforging of Ultimate Play the Game into Rare, and it's really where Rare started, well, getting this reputation for genius. Genius. Absolute genius. Genius, well-crafted games that 99% of the time have aged really well. So in other aspects, no, not so much. They haven't aged well at all. But that leads us into Era 3. Now, Era 3 is where I come in. I have a good chunk of the games they made. Apart from, I don't own Banjo-Tooie. You will not see Banjo-Tooie here because Banjo-Tooie is 40 quid and I don't have the money. But what I do have is it would be the second one. Banjo-Kazooie. Yes. So I would like to stress this isn't my introduction to Rare, but this is where they really stepped up. This is where they really stepped up. This is where they were handed the keys to the kingdom of the N64, the second best-selling console of its generation. Largely because the PlayStation 1 came along and went, hey, what about the CD, and smashed it out of the park. But they didn't have things like this. So with PlayStation, you had your Spyros, you had your Crash Bandicoots, and you had your Jersey Devils. You didn't have quite the robust 360 movement that you got with the Nintendo 64's wonky-ass controller, and specifically its thumbstick. So it also didn't have the graphical power that was awarded to something like Banjo-Kazooie. And Banjo has been a long-running franchise that people want back because the last game they made was shit. It was shit. It was appalling. It was appalling. We'll get to that one. But what do I think of it? Now, I didn't play Banjo on the N64. 90% of these games I didn't play on the N64 to begin with. Largely because I didn't own one. I had a 360. And we'll get onto that shortly. But Banjo-Kazooie was one of the games I bought. Because I was like, hey, you know, I've played the garbage one. What have I got the good one? So I bought Banjo-Kazooie. I didn't buy Tooie again. Don't ask me why. I didn't get around to it before the shop shut anyway, but not that there's much point nowadays because there's a very particular collection we'll get to shortly for Era 7. But yeah, so I played it. I liked it. I'm not a huge collectathon fan. There we go. Jeez, tongue twisters today. Yeah, not a big collectathon fan. Strictly because they're just not my style of game. I grew up with Sonic. So I didn't grow up with Banjo-Kazooie or Spyro or Crash Bandicoot, where collecting is kind of the name of the game. Maybe not so much Bandicoot, but regardless. And I played it. I played most of it. It's good. It is good. I do like it. I think playing the 360 version probably did me a favour because I didn't have the sort of janky-ass controls that come with the N64. Unlike sort of the next game, which... the next game is Jet Force Gemini, which... I said 99% of Rare games age very well. This isn't one of them. Jet Force Gemini is a sort of third-person shooter... with 3 playable characters, and it has aged like 80,000-year-old milk. Its controls are just abysmal. It's not a game to play, especially 20 years down the line when I played it. 20 years after the fact, I was like, oh my god, Halo came out literally a couple of years later and it plays so much better. And it does. Hell, Operation Winback is another third-person shooter on the N64, and it plays better than that Windows, which is a bit insane. That also coincidentally had an Xbox 360 sequel called Operation Winback 2. Probably had a different name, but I don't know. But yeah, I mean, cool. Crap, I forgot a game. So, they did release another game on the SNES, which was Killer Instinct, which leads us rather nicely into Killer Instinct Gold. Yes, Rare have indeed made a fighting game. So you've got 3D platformer, third-person shooter, fighting game. And you know what? It's a good one. I'm not a big fighting game fan. Surprising considering how many Saturn fighting games I have. It's a lot. And the fact that most of my Neo Geo collection is also fighting games. Not a big fighting game fan. Never really have been. It's just not a genre I've been particularly able to get into. And that's okay. That's okay. That's not really the end of the world. My love of Killer Instinct, though, really does start with the N64 version. I played that quite extensively when I first got my N64. It was one of the first games I got, and it plays really well. Like the chap with the wings. 5 rounds rapid. Anyway, yeah, this is Rare's height. This is their peak. This is where they are making... This is their golden age, where they make another 6, 7, if you count Tui. Hell, they even branched out and did a racing game in the form of Diddy Kong Racing. One of the best racing games on the platform. I'm not a huge Mario Kart fan. I'm not. My favourite one is Double Dash, which is nearly 20 years old, which is horrifying to think about. But, in fact, it's over 20 years old, which is also horrifying to think about. But Diddy Kong Racing is just so much better than Mario Kart 64. Kind of in a lot of ways, some people would say that Kazooie is better than Mario 64. Now, I'm not one of those people because I don't particularly care for Super Mario 64, so I can't really comment. But at the same time, I think Diddy Kong Racing is pretty close. Having sort of like an adventure mode with sort of an open world track decades before Super Mario World does it, Mario Kart World does it, is really cool. It's a dang good game. Play it with friends. With friends. Here's one that most people don't typically talk about, and that is Blast Corps. Now, Blast Corps is sort of a demolition destruction game from a sort of top-down perspective. You control a series of vehicles, blow up a series of buildings. It's aggressively 7 out of 10. But that's not a bad thing. 7 out of 10 is not a bad thing. Now, would I have bought Blast Corps back in the day for full price? Nah, no, I wouldn't have. I'd have bought it for 20 quid. In fact, I think I spent about 8 on that particular copy, and it's a solid game. It's a lot of fun. It's just aggressively okay. And that's all it needs to be. It's aggressively okay. Unlike, I'll get to you, GoldenEye. Yes, GoldenEye. GoldenEye is nothing short of revolutionary. If you've watched any kind of James Bond game video on the internet, inevitably they'll go, GoldenEye was better. Which, yes, it probably was in a lot of ways. Personally, I think its controls are a bit janky. Tiny bit janky. Tiny, titchy, tiny, ever so slightly bit janky. But I can still put this in, and I can still have one fuck of a good time. Now, I think if you buy the Rare Replay on the Xbox 360, you get this for free? ? I haven't actually tried it. I know to, because this getting re-released was a huge thing, because it is the seminal, the original, the first major console shooter out of anything. Now, bearing in mind it came out sort of the same time as Half-Life, and it came out after Quake, and it came out after Quake 2, and it is very slow. It's very slow. It's sort of hard to control. But I can still put this in, and I can still play with friends, and I can still have a fuck of a lot of fun with it, which is a major thing. That is a huge, major thing. It's something you don't really get with a lot of shooters nowadays, where you can go, yeah, okay. Of that period in particular. About the only games that I sort of put on par with it are World Is Not Enough, which I think is GoldenEye Plus, personally, for me. It just has a lot more to it. I don't think it's as revolutionary, because it really was just sort of following on from things like, well, the next game on the list, Perfect Dark, but and personally Turok 3. Turok 3 sort of takes the cake for me in that respect, but World Is Not Enough, really solid game. GoldenEye, tippy top, still near the top, still a lot of fun. Perfect Dark, though, is a spiritual successor that's better in every way, and I will die on that hill. It is better than Gold. It's got more content in it. It looks better. Its story is better. Its characters are better. It runs surprisingly well for for a late N64 game with really pushing the graphics to their maximum. It has a extremely robust multiplayer suite, and probably its major thing that I really, really like is counter-operative mode. So I'm planning on doing sort of maybe a side video series but focused around like forgotten multiplayer modes, and counter-operative is right at the top of that list because it's just such a cool idea of somebody trying to get through the main level and then one other player jumping between different enemies trying to stop you. So like you die, they win. It's really cool. That sort of asymmetrical gameplay is something I really, really like in games as a whole. So it would be nice to see something like counter-operative make a return in a non-shit way. I think it'd be really cool. Not every platformer Rare did, from Banjo-Tooie, Banjo-Kazooie, and yes, wasn't quite a banger. Donkey Kong 64, I like, but it's probably the largest game Rare made, and that's not a good thing. It's bloated. It is a hideously malformed, bloated tumour of a game that, quite frankly, is too long. It's too long, it's too busy, you have to switch characters, but you have to backtrack to one point to switch a character, is fucking asinine. It's just really bad game design across the board. So, I like Donkey Kong 64, but only to a certain degree. Had a multiplayer mode, that's also on that list. Can't really speak too much about Kong Rumble, but I'm sure down the line I'll pick it up. We'll see. The final game that Rare made, sort of, in this era is Conker's Bad Fur Day. Now, it's an aggressive alcoholic squirrel who swears a lot and likes to shoot things. Where's my sequel, Rare? We didn't get that. We've had a couple of We've had 3 other Conker games, if you count Conker's Pocket Tales, which I don't. It's a Game Boy game. The other games were, if you really want to think about it, Young Conker, and I think it's called Conker Returns in a game called Project Sparks, which A, nobody's going to remember that. B, you can't access that anymore. And C, it was arse shit. If there's one fucking character I just want to come back... Hell, Microsoft sell Rare. Sell Rare to Nintendo and let them make games again, you know? Rather than the crap you've got them producing. Especially with Conker's Bad Fur Day. Now, I was introduced to this during what we're going to call Rare's first Dark Age. Now, Rare's first Dark Age is the period of just after finishing a certain game that I really, really don't like, and sort of their initial burst onto the 360. So, the first Dark Age, which, yeah, Rare made 3 games. Technically 4. So yeah, Banjo Pilot, which, okay, don't own it, don't care. The next one was this. Yep, it's Dinosaur Planet, but it's Stairfax Temperatures. It's Star Fox Adventures. It is a fucking Star Fox sequel where you don't fly the R-Wing for 99% of the game, and then you're in a really, really, really fucking shit Zelda clone for the rest of it. And I'm going to be honest with you, it is flat out, for me, Rare's worst game. By a good margin. I know there's people out there that really like Stairfax Temperatures, but it is asinine. Here's the kicker. I like Crystal. I'm sure Dinosaur Planet, if it had been released on the N64 like it was supposed to be, could have been really good. It's just not that game. Not that game at all. And I know why they slapped Star Fox on it. It's so that Microsoft couldn't release it on their console, which they did for the next 2 games. So let's talk about the next 2 games. Rare's only release that wasn't a fucking re-release, Grabbed by the Ghoulies. Yeah. It's okay. it has a horrible habit of you. It's one of those games. It's one of those games that won't leave the right thumbstick alone to do what it's supposed to do, which is camera work. Instead, they go, "Oh, it's the combat." Right, okay, that's fine. Which I hate. Personally, it does feel a bit like a pub brawl. You grab different weapons and smack zombies with it, and you can throw burgers at their faces and 100 other different fucking weapons. But personally, I think the game is lacking very severely. It's lacking in that thing that made Rare rare. It doesn't have that same level of, ooh, crazy idea. Instead, it's, yeah, you beat up some zombies and it's kind of shit because the controls are awful. They're absolutely terrible. In comparison to their next game, Conker Live and Reloaded, which is literally just a re-release of Conker's Bad Fur Day with all the swearing censored. Yay, great. With all the swearing censored and adding a, really fun multiplayer mode. The multiplayer saves this. It really genuinely does. Released real late into the original Xbox's life, like 2005. This still had a very active online fan base right up until they turned off those fucking servers. And it's a good game. It is. I bought this for £3 out of GameStation, 15 years ago now? And it plays really, really, really well. It plays really well. It's absolutely one of my favourite games on the original Xbox. But you can see why this is Rare's dark period. That period of absolutely fucking nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. And that sucks. That sucks. That sucks big donkey dick. And it's not great. It's not great that we only really got one good game in those 4 or 5 years, and that game, let's be fair, is a fucking re-release. It's a re-release I wouldn't mind coming out again, because we didn't actually get it with the Rare Replay release, which pissed me off big time. Where's my Conker Live and Reloaded, guys? Remove the censored swearing, and we're good to go. Here's the kicker. Neither of the two major errors I've talked about today are my introduction to Rare. This was Cameo Element of Power. So, I'd been sort of jonesing for an Xbox 360 because I found out that Halo 3 wasn't going to be on the original Xbox, which pissed me off usually. I was like, I'm going to have to get an entirely new console just to play Halo 3. Then I saw this. I saw Cameo in game way back in the day in a big old Xbox 360 demo booth, and I got to play it. I got to play it in game, and I was like, I need this game. I need this game. I really need this game. And you know what? It's brilliant. It is absolutely fantastic. I have such a soft spot for Cameo Elements of Power because it takes this really cool concept of playing as this woman who has the ability to turn into 10 different elemental warriors, and each and every one of them does something differently. Each and every single one of them does something differently. And that's really cool. It is really cool. It is exceptionally cool. We'll have to get on to you because you're not a Rare game. Tut. Anyway, there were other games in this era that I was looking at. So, for example, but Cameo was what actually sold me on getting a 360. I was already like, yeah, I'll get one because Halo 3. But playing Cameo Elements of Power in that game made me go, I need this. I need this really badly. I then got one. I got an Xbox 360 in 2007, so about 2 years after it had initially come out in, I think, November of 2005. So I picked up Cameo. I got that for Christmas, and I got, what else did I get for that? So, that birthday. I got Cameo, and a couple of other games that I really don't care about. But, Cameo was sort of the central one. That was the one I really wanted. I then followed that up with Overlord, Gears of War, Halo 2, Assassin's Creed 1, and Mass Effect, and Bioshock. That was a good year. I got Bioshock off of a friend of mine as a Christmas present. I still got that copy. As a birthday present. So, yeah, I had a really stacked lineup of games for the 360. That was a fucking good year for games. Not anymore. But yeah, Cameo. Play it. Play it. It's my favourite Rare game. And that's saying something. I did follow it up, though. Perfect Dark Zero. Yes. Ignore the case for that. That is using the... Actually, to be fair, it lines up quite well. That is using the censored plastic case for the Bureau XCOM Declassified. But Perfect Dark Zero. Yes, a unfortunately mediocre follow-up to Rare's best game on the N64. Perfect Dark. Yes, it is a prequel. And there was a new one being made that has been cancelled because fuck Microsoft. If there's one company who needs to go down the toilet, it's those cunts. But, yeah, Perfect Dark Zero. I really like this game. I do. It's not for everyone. It really, really follows the sort of trend set by GoldenEye style shooters. So GoldenEye style shooters, you cannot jump. You've got a very specific HUD. You've got like the orange bar for health, and you've got the blue bar for shields. Shields deplete first, naturally. That isn't present here, but the DNA is there. And they typically have very robust bot-based multiplayer modes. This did. This had a really solid multiplayer mode. I really, really like this game. I really, really like Perfect Dark Zero to the point where I got 2 fucking copies of it. One is the Collector's Edition, which is lovely. And the other one is, of course, your Standard Edition. But, yeah, why wasn't it as well received? A few reasons. Number one, it had aged quite badly in terms of mechanics and design. So following the sort of time... So bearing in mind the GoldenEye-like, or the Golden-like, whatever you want to call it, was a very specific genre of shooters. So you only really had about 8 off the top of my head. You had Perfect Dark Zero, Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, debatably... Well, there's not enough. The Time Splitters trilogy, and that's... Oh, and GoldenEye Rogue Agent, which... Fuck that game. The rest, though, very specifically, you can't jump. It's all mostly corridors. There's some set pieces, but not a lot. It's very particular. Unfortunately, this was just sort of the start of Rare's troubles. Now, Cameo didn't sell super well. Perfect Dark didn't sell super well. And nor did the follow-on to Banjo-Kazooie. Here's the kicker. I like this era. I do. I don't like this game. I think it is really shit. It's too much to unlock. It's quite painful to play, quite frankly, in the early offs. I don't enjoy playing it. I actually got more love out of Viva Pinata. Now, Viva Pinata was extraordinarily rare. Them just going, hey, guys, you know... Pet Simulator, and it plays well. The first Viva Pinata I actually bought for my siblings. So back in the day, back in yonder distant past of 2007, GameStation had a bunch of different games available as part of it. I think it was 2 for 20 quid, and I ended up spending about 40. I spent 40 quid. I can't tell you what one of the games is. One was Viva Pinata, and the other 2 that I can remember are Lost Planet, which was cool. Specifically the Collector's Edition, which I don't own anymore, which is nuts. Need to track that down, and I will. And the other one was Gears of War, which was awesome. But Viva Pinata I did buy for my siblings, and they didn't care. So I played it more than they did, which is a bit of a shame. This copy that I've got here is the limited edition one that I actually picked up for my wife. I also picked up the sequel, which came out in 2008, so a couple of years later. And it's probably a more robust version of the first game. It plays better. It's got a lot more to it. 2 new realms, unique gardens, 2 to 4 player co-op, which... The first game does have, it only has like 2 player online. This has 4, which is pretty sick. And that's sort of where Viva Pinata died as far as Rare goes. There was a follow-on, which is Viva Pinata Party Animals, but this is just a shitty Mario Kart clone. Viva Pinata clone. That, let's be fair, is based on the really, really shit cartoon of the same name. It wasn't even made by Rare. It was made by Chrome Studios, which, no. No. Very bad. Not a fan. That was Rare's Xbox 360 era. Then we get to the dark times. So, we've had Starter, SNES era, the Golden Age, the first dark time, the 360 era, the second dark times, Kinect games, yes. The Xbox Kinect, which was an attempt by Microsoft to go, hey, what if the Wii, but without motion control nunchuck, and you use your arms and it's borderline unplayable? Yeah, it was borderline unplayable. And they made, I think Rare made a few games for this. I hate these. I think they are terrible. I think they are absolutely fucking atrocious. Sports the way they're meant to be played with your whole body and voice. No, Wii Sports came out literally... When did this fucking come out? 2011? Wii Sports came out 5 years prior and was better in every way. Do the math. Or was it 4 years? Either way, don't care. Yeah, that's where Rare were. They were stuck in Kinect land for a fucking long time. Until we got a couple new games. Specifically, Rare Replay. This is where you go nowadays to play Rare games. It just is. It's got 30 different games released about 10 years ago, which is quite how... Yeah, 10 years ago? 10 years ago. So this was their 30th anniversary collection. They've done something sort of similar with Evercade, which, cool, whatever. But the only game that they have worked on in the interim time, well, that hasn't been fucking cancelled because fuck Microsoft, is Sea of Thieves. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I don't care. Sea of Thieves released terribly. It released really poorly, like lacking so many fucking features. It's still around about nearly 10 years later and cool. But at the same time, it's a shitty live service game that I couldn't give any kind of fuck about. Which is a shame because they used to make some really stellar stuff, you know, from Perfect Dark Zero, Cameo, Conquer Live and Reloaded, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Perfect Dark, all these absolutely astounding games, and now they are slaved to the live service minds because Microsoft seem to have it in their pig fucking corpo heads that if we keep pumping out the same shit, people will buy the same shit because we are unbeholden. We're beholden only to our fucking trashy investor overlords. And you know what? Fuck off. They just want to see games. They just want to see numbers go up on a chart, and if that's what Sea of Thieves is to them, then cool. For me, it's a game that came out, they went, hey, pirates. And I went, cool, Black Flag. I'll play that. I won't play fucking Sea of Thieves, and I still haven't. And I have no intention of doing so. If you like it, then great. Good for you. For me, it's everything that is wrong with gaming. So, where does that leave us? After 40 years. It leaves us with Rare, quite frankly, as a shell of its former self. An absolute husk of its former self, which is depressing because this was a studio that had the world in the palm of its hand. It had really fascinating ideas, really cool games that just play well, are a lot of fun, multiple different genres. They could seemingly throw their hat into any ring and they'd be able to knock it out of the park. That sort of continued through the initial dark time and the 360 era, but after that, what's it been? Kinect titles, a very good 30th anniversary. I mean, it's got things like Snake and Roll, Slalom, Solar Jetman, Underworld, Perfect Dark Zero, Perfect Dark. I think they added GoldenEye to this very recently. A lot of really cool stuff. Not anymore. Not anymore. Not anymore. Rare have made one game in the last 10 years, and it was not something I would ever play. So it's kind of a shame. It's kind of a shame. Anyways, guys, that is Rare's 40th anniversary. Here's to another 40, hopefully with them pried away from the decrepit, decaying clutches of the Xbox division and actually making some fucking games that aren't shit. And, yeah. Anyways, guys, that is me signing off, and I will see you next time.